Exodus chapter 13. Going to be a little bit different of a sermon today. I'm going to take you back in history for a moment and then bring you up to speed where we're at right now. Exodus chapter 13, let's begin reading there. When Pharaoh finally let the people go, God did not lead them along the main road that runs through Philistine territory, even though that was the shortest route to the promised land. God said, if the people are faced with a battle, they might change their minds and return to Egypt. Children of Israel had been in slavery over in Egypt for 400 years. Everyone that was a slave in Egypt was born into slavery. That's all they knew. All of a sudden, this guy named Moses shows up and starts demanding that Pharaoh let his people go. Now, we know the story of Moses. If you don't, I'll catch you up really fast. Moses was a Hebrew baby that Pharaoh's daughter found floating in the river because Moses' mother had made a little boat and put him in it because all the boy children were supposed to be killed, and Moses' mom said, I'm not doing that. So she put him in a little boat, pushed him out into the Nile River, and lo and behold, God ordained it to where Pharaoh's daughter found him. So Moses was actually a Hebrew raised as an Egyptian in an Egyptian palace, the grandson of Pharaoh. All right? Long story there. We won't go into all of it. But Moses fled Egypt for about 40 years, and when he came back, he went to Pharaoh and said, let my people go. Pharaoh said, no, I'm not going to do it. We got our slaves. We don't want to let our slaves go. Not going to do it. 9 plagues later, Pharaoh said, get them Hebrews and get out of my country. Get out of my country. All right? So they left, and as they left, God didn't take them the shortest route. How many of you, when you travel, you take the shortest route? Say yes. Okay? Sometimes when Susan and I are out moseying around during the day or whatever it is we're doing, going from one destination to the next, and now that I'm 60, I don't always use paper maps like I used to anymore. I use GPS. How many of you use GPS? Say yes. Yes. Okay. How many of you has GPS got you lost before? Say yes. Yes. It's not always accurate. How many of you understand that? Yes? There we are. But sometimes Susan will put it in for me because she's my navigator. Even when I don't want her to be, she's still my navigator. Some of you husbands will get that. But I'll say, what's the shortest route home? She'll say 45 minutes. I say, what's the longest route? She said, an hour and 15 minutes. Okay, set it for the longest route. Let's take a route we haven't been before. I've already been on the interstate today. Let's go back roads. Let's go try something different, okay? And it takes longer to do that. When the children of Israel, the Hebrews, left Egypt slavery, God knew the shortest route from where they were to the Red Sea was just going right through the Philistine country. But God said, nope, not going to lead them there. Don't want to take them there because they're not ready for that. They're not ready for the opposition that's coming. They're not ready for the battle that will come. So I'm going to lead them the long way around where they're safer, where I have a little bit longer to establish who I am for them. Remember, these people had been in slavery. Some of them certainly knew the God of Isaac, Jacob, and Abraham. Some of them truly knew. I said that backward, Jacob, Isaac, and Abraham. Anyway, some of them truly knew that. But some of them did not. So God needed time to let them know, hey, I am doing this, I am doing this. It's me leading, here. So he led them a long way to get them over to the Red Sea when another route would have just been shorter. But look, God knew human nature. Human nature is that we are all good and all is well until things are not. Okay? It's easy to be on fire for Jesus on Sunday. It is. It really, really is. You're in a safe place. You're with other people who believe in Jesus. We're praising God. The Word is being preached. The amens are flowing. Everything is great. It's easy to follow God and to be obedient to the Lord in this place. Not so much on Monday. Not so much on Tuesday. By Wednesday, circumstances sometimes are really bad. And you done lost everything that you gained on Sunday. It's just gone. I'm discouraged. I'm frustrated. The way is getting very difficult. And God knows human nature. That's why He protected the Hebrews from sending them right through Philistine territory. They weren't ready for that battle. Verse 18. So God led them in a roundabout way through the wilderness toward the Red Sea. Thus the Israelites left Egypt like an army ready for battle. Now, it just says like an army. They were nowhere near an army ready for battle. They had been slaves. They didn't know anything about battling and doing all this. That was the Egyptians' jobs. All the slaves were supposed to do was be obedient and mix the mortar and plant the crops and do all this and that. That's all they were supposed to do. All right? But they left very confident, very resolute, very assured, very emboldened by the fact, I've never known freedom. I have always been in slavery, and so now I'm free. And I've got this confidence about me. I've got this, I am determined. All of these words could be used to describe the Hebrews after being in slavery for 400 years. All of it. Sometimes we're just like that. Look, I'm going to tell you right up front, without a doubt. I was saved at 19 and a half years old after a very rough few years as a teenager. Very rough. The day that I got saved, I'm just going to be honest with you, I was ready to attack hell with a water pistol. I'm telling you, I was on fire for Jesus. I had been set free on Thursday night, and Friday was a brand new day. And it was just unbelievable. And I'm going to be honest with you, that'll be 41 years, July the 19th. That'll be 41 years ago. And I'm still running on that high today. Not always, but I'm still there most of the time. Because I know what the Lord did for me. And I remember what He brought me from and where He built me into. I remember that. And that fuels my fire. That keeps me rolling because I know who I would have been had I continued on that path very much longer. I knew what would have happened. So the Lord delivered, and I was emboldened. I was ready to go. I was confident. I was resolute. I will live for Jesus the rest of my life. I will not go back to this former lifestyle again. I am confident in what I'm doing. That's exactly the way these Hebrews were when they left out of Egypt. Verse 19. Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for Joseph had made the sons of Israel swear to do this. He said, God will certainly come to help you. When He does, you must take my bones with you from this place. Let me pause there for a second. Joseph was the reason that the Hebrews ended up in Egypt to start with. Remember, Joseph was sold into slavery some 400 years before this. And he went over there, and Joseph rose from a simple slave boy to second in command in Egypt in just a few years. And Joseph became the national hero. He saved them from starvation. He saved them from all sorts of annihilation because Joseph had an extraordinary wisdom given to him from God. And so Joseph was there and all was well. Well, eventually Joseph died. Eventually the Pharaoh died off. New Pharaoh took over. Everybody forgot about Joseph. The Hebrews became slaves instead of welcome allies in their country. But Joseph made them promise. One day God is going to come. He's going to come and deliver you out of this place. And when He does, I don't want my bones left here in Egypt because this is not my land. This is not the land of my forefathers. I want to be buried in the land that God has promised. I want to go over there. I want my bones over there. And Moses obliged that. And he took Joseph's bones with him. Right? Verse number 20. The Israelites left Succoth and camped at Etham on the edge of the wilderness. The Lord went ahead of them. He guided them during the day with a pillar of cloud, and He provided light at night with a pillar of fire. This allowed them to travel by day or by night. And the Lord did not remove the pillar of cloud or pillar of fire from its place in front of the people. Imagine, during the day, you step out of your tent, and you look up, and there's this big, tall pillar of cloud. It doesn't look like another cloud. It looks like this big, tall, monumental pillar of stone or something, and that's that cloud. And that cloud would move, and as long as that cloud was moving, they would just follow wherever the cloud led them to. That's how God led them during the day. And when the sun went down, that cloud turned into fire. And they would, if God wanted them to move at night, that pillar of fire just kept moving, and the children of Israel just kept following because God led them that way to get them to where He wanted them to be. And God didn't take it away at all during the day or during the night. They could always see. But if it stopped, that meant stop, build your camp here. We're going to rest here for a little while, and we'll start moving again tomorrow or next week sometime. We don't know how long they stood in one place. I want you to imagine being there and seeing all this take place. I want you to think of how you would felt as a Hebrew. You've been in slavery, now you're walking free. God has brought you out, and He's leading you, and He's providing for you. You're seeing all of this happen, and your faith is being built up. Things are going well. We're on our way to a land. We don't have a clue where we're going, but we're on our way to a land that God said is ours. That's all we know. All we got to do is follow that cloud and follow that fire, and we'll get there. We'll get there. Now we're going to skip chapters, the next chapter, over to chapter 14. When word reached the king of Egypt that the Israelites had fled, Pharaoh and his officials changed their minds. What have we done? Letting all those Israelite slaves get away, they asked. Let's pause for a moment. You talk about serious buyer's remorse. Pharaoh had it. Pharaoh only changed his mind about letting them go when Pharaoh's own son and all the firstborn of Egypt died on the final night of the plague. That's what's called the Passover. The very next day, Pharaoh had had enough. All the plagues that had taken so much from them. Pharaoh finally told Moses, get those people out of my country. Get gone. Go. And God caused the Egyptians, as the Israelites are leaving, to bring gifts to them. Gold and food and all kind of stuff. Giving it to them on their way out of Egypt. God caused all that to happen. We don't know how long down the road it was. It wasn't very long. Could have been a month, could have been 2, could have been 6 months. We don't know. Pharaoh had buyer's remorse. After all, now the Egyptians are going to have to start farming and growing their own food. Now the Egyptians are going to have to start mixing the mortar and setting the marble on their big fancy places to live. Now the Egyptians are going to have to start doing what the Israelites have done for 400 years. And Pharaoh's like, what did I do? What did I do? Verse 6. So Pharaoh harnessed his chariot and called up his troops. He took with him 600 of Egypt's best chariots, along with the rest of the chariots of Egypt, each with its commander. The Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, so he chased after the people of Israel who had left with fist raised in defiance. What does that mean, God hardened the heart of Pharaoh? God said, enough is enough. It's time for me to show Egypt who God is, and it's time for me to show these Hebrews who God is. It's time for me to teach both sides a lesson. And this is the way we're going to do it. I'm going to make Pharaoh change his mind about leaving or letting the Hebrews go out of slavery. He's going to change his mind. He's going to take the entire Egyptian army and go chase after them to bring them back. God caused that to happen. When you read this in the original structure, He didn't allow it to happen. He caused it to happen. Why? So He could show His power. Let me tell you, when God's ready to get your attention, He has a way of getting your attention. You may not like it. I am sure the Egyptians didn't like it. I am positive those widows and those orphan or those fatherless children didn't like the way God got their attention, but we have zero record that Egypt ever rose up against Israel again. We don't have any record of that. Not in Bible times anyway. Let's read on. Verse number 9, the Egyptians chased after them with all the forces in Pharaoh's army, all his horses and chariots, his charioteers and his troops. The Egyptians caught up with the people of Israel as they were camped beside the shore near Pi-hathroth, across from Baal-zephon. I don't know where that's at. I'm just reading you what it says. Verse 10. As Pharaoh approached, the people of Israel looked up and panicked. Uh-oh, here we go. Remember, he didn't lead them through the land of the Philistines because he knew they weren't ready for that battle. And he knew they were going to freak out and panic. So he led them the long way around to get them to the Red Sea. He gets them to the Red Sea. Now they start panicking. But the time wasn't for God to show what he was going to do back in battling the Philistines. The time for God to show what he was going to do was on the shores of the Red Sea. That was the time. Verse number 10. As Pharaoh approached, the people of Israel looked up in panic when they saw the Egyptians overtaking them. They cried out to the Lord, and they said to Moses, here we go, turn on your leader. Why did you bring us out here to die in the wilderness? Weren't there enough graves for us in Egypt? What have you done to us? Why did you make us leave Egypt? Didn't we tell you this would happen while we were still in Egypt? We said, leave us alone. Let us be slaves to the Egyptians. It's better to be a slave in Egypt than a corpse in the wilderness. Woo! I have known so many people who've begun their walk with Jesus Christ, and they get a year or 2 or 5 or 10 down the road, and they run into really tough times, and what do? They abandon Jesus. They walk away. They walk away. They get discouraged. They quit. Before long, you don't see them at church anymore. Next thing you know, they're out there in the world living like hellions, as my mom and dad used to say. Why? Because they ran up against opposition, and they panicked. And they panicked. Let me bring you into this really fast. We are just like those people on the seashores of the Red Sea. We freak out. And sometimes we think we would rather go back to the former life because I was comfortable there. I knew what I was doing there. It was easy because I woke up in the morning and just did the same thing every day. I was very comfortable with that. It didn't require any change. It didn't require any effort. I just did what I was told to do and go on about my business. Let me tell you something. There's some of you in here right now that have experienced that very thing. You've experienced that. It's easier just to go back to the former life than it is to keep on pressing forward for Jesus. Because I got news for you. Following Jesus is not easy. It's not easy. I don't care what the televangelist told you when he was asking for your money. I don't care about any of that because following Jesus is hard, man. It's difficult. There are things that happen in our life that will make us want to run back to the former life. There were times after I got saved that things got rough. When all my friends no longer wanted to hang out with me. When some of my family turned against me. When things started happening around me, it would have been easy just to step back into the world and just live that, because after all, that was natural. Let me tell you about your pastor. Let me tell you what's natural within me. The natural man inside of me is an angry, violent, drunk fornicator, thief. That's who I am naturally. That's what's inside of me. That's what the flesh nature continues to cry out and say, do. Give in. It's much easier to do that. Listen, it's much easier for me to go and beat the much easier for me to go fight somebody than it is to try to make peace with them. He almost got me. I'm just being honest with you. It's much easier. Because sitting down making peace with somebody, I have to control myself. I have to keep myself in check. If I'm slinging a fist or hitting you with a bat, ain't no control in that. Give it all you got. I'm just being honest. And if you're honest with yourself, that's who you are too. That's what the flesh says to do. It's much easier just to be who the devil wants you to be than it is to walk with God, but it's never right. It's never right. We have to fight that battle. We have to fight uphill. I think about the salmon up in Alaska. I've never seen them. One day my goal, I want to go to Alaska, Susan. I want to go, and that's going to happen one year. But anyway, I think about them salmon. You know what they do? They leave and they swim hundreds, if not even thousands of miles. And they go upstream and upstream, and they're fighting heavy currents flowing down against them. And they're flowing upstream. They're swimming upstream with everything they've got. And they're jumping up. Water falls instead of coming down, and they're jumping up. And they swim, and they swim, and they fight, and they fight, and they fight, and they fight. And they get to the end of where they're going, and they lay eggs, and they die. Now, I want you to think about this for a minute. New life requires fighting. New life requires fighting. Why do they fight that hard? So they can bring forth new life, and now there'll be a whole lot more salmon in the river. That's why they fight. Your new life in Christ is worth fighting for. It's worth giving everything you've got. You do not give up. You do not walk away. It's worth fighting for. So let me ask you this morning. What is your Red Sea? What is your Red Sea? What is it that stops you from pursuing God? What is it that stops you from following God? What is it that you run up against that you just go, oh, I don't stand a chance against. I'm just going back to the former life. Every person in this room has a Red Sea. The Apostle Paul listed it as the sin that so easily besets us. Everybody in this room has a favorite sin. I'm not going to even begin to guess what yours is. I don't want to know. Ain't none of my business. It's between you and Jesus. Everybody in this room has one. That's your Red Sea. That's the thing that will make you stop following Jesus. It might only be for a short period of time. But that's the thing that when you give into it and you dive into it, it makes you go back into the slavery that the Lord Jesus set you free from. You have to answer that question. Could it be money? Could it be time? Could it be busyness of schedule? Could it be a relationship that you're in that's your Red Sea? Could it be an addiction that you're in? Could it be unforgiveness that you still harbor? Could it be hate? You have to answer what that Red Sea is in your life. Whatever it is that discourages you and frustrates you to make you stop seeking the things of God, that is your Red Sea. That's your Red Sea. Fear could be your Red Sea. You know how many people are afraid to follow God and to submit to Him because it might cost them their friends. It might cost them some family members. It might cost them more than we can even imagine or talk about at this point. But I promise you, you're not going to be any worse off than Jesus or the apostles were, because following Jesus cost them their lives. They were martyred. I say this all the time. Somehow we've begun gauging our self-worth and our self-esteem by how many likes we get on our Facebook page or by how many friends we have on our Facebook page. Let me tell you something, that's nothing. You know, there's only one like that I'm concerned about in this life, and that's the like from Jesus Christ. It says, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." That's the only like I'm pursuing. That's it. I don't care about the rest of them. Listen, I'm a weird dude, and I know that. My wife will tell you that. He's a weird dude, and I'm good with that. Told somebody one time I might be a nut, but I'm screwed on to the right bolt. So there we go. Listen, if I got Jesus, I got everything I'll ever need. Take the world away from me, and I'll be okay. I'll be okay. Look, living for Christ is never easy. That's why Jesus said in Matthew chapter 7, verse number 13 and 14. Here's what Jesus said. These are His words. You can enter God's kingdom only through the narrow gate. The highway to hell is broad, and its gate is wide for the many who choose that way. But the gateway to life is very narrow, and the road is difficult, and only a few ever find it. Does that sound easy to you? No, it does not. Following Jesus requires sacrifice. Sacrifice of what? Of our own will and our own stubbornness, and sacrificing our flesh nature and our desires. That's what it requires to follow Jesus. When we just give in to whatever comes our way, we're walking the broad way and not the narrow way. We have to be very, very careful that we don't do that. Look, the Apostle Paul had to address this issue with the church at Galatia. Here's what he said. So Christ has truly set us free. Now make sure that you stay free. And don't get tied up again in slavery to the law. Slide down to verse 7. You were running. Here's what Paul told them. You were running the race so well. Who has held you back from following the truth? It certainly isn't God, for He is the one who called you to freedom. Here's what Paul is telling them. Man, you started off doing so good. You started following Christ. Man, you were sold out. You were on fire for Jesus, man. And now you don't even show up for church. You don't show up for life group. You don't show up for anything anymore. I can't even get you to return my call. You were doing so good. Who threw you off track? What happened? Why did you stop? That's the question Paul's asking them. And that's the question for today. What is it that's throwing you off track? What is your Red Sea? What is your Red Sea? Look, following Christ is not for wimps. Get that out of your mind. It's not. It's a very difficult road to follow Christ. It's a hard road to follow Christ. Because what our nature wants to do is totally in opposition to what our new nature, our spirit nature wants us to do. When you're born again, you receive the Spirit of God dwelling within you. And the Spirit of God is battling against the flesh nature. So you've got the new nature and the flesh nature battling one another. You want to know why it gets tiring sometimes? Because there's a battle going on in your mind. My battle is with sugar a lot of times. I was sitting at Waffle House about 5 o'clock this morning. I don't always eat a waffle at Waffle House, by the way. It is possible to go there and just get an omelet. Not very often does that happen, but it's possible. And I'm sitting there, and Susan and I always buy an omelet, and we share it. And we're at the age we share everything. You know, I guess when we both lose our teeth, we'll share the false teeth, and that way the other one can eat too. Whatever. So I'm sitting at Waffle House this morning. I finished my omelet. I packed up everything because that's what Susan makes me do. We get everything ready for the waitress to clear our table. We stack it all in a nice, neat pile, and all they have to do is pick up one. How many of y'all do that? Say, yeah. I'm sorry, babe. You're not the only freak on earth. I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, a waffle starts calling my name. Mikey. Mikey. And where I made the mistake was I glanced over at the waffle maker. I should have just looked outside. But no, I glanced at the waffle maker, and I'm like, oh. My waitress happened to walk by and said, I want a blueberry chocolate chip waffle light. Don't burn that thing. I don't like a Frisbee. That's not what I want it floppy when you bring it to me. And she said, okay, I'll be glad to do that. She brought me that waffle. That is the thing that makes me go off in a hurry. And Clay, when I eat one waffle, I want 5. You with me, my brother? Clay and I are both fat boys at heart. Just saying. Now, that's just one little small example of what my flesh nature. My spirit nature said here, don't eat that. You got to preach 3 sermons, you got to sing 3 services today, and you got to baptize 7 in the river as soon as the 3rd service is finished today. Don't eat that waffle, you're going to feel bogged down. Don't eat that waffle, eat it, eat it. Don't eat that waffle, eat it, eat it. Eat it, 1. And now I'm kind of like, I need a nap. All right. Silly example of a much deeper truth in our life. You have to figure out what it is that's your Red Sea. What calls your name that throws you off? What throws you off? You may say, well, nothing at all. Look, it might be gossip. You may not be happy in life unless you're running somebody else down. That's a sin. Uh-oh. What? Yeah, it's sin. Lord told us not to do that. It could be some kind of sexual perversion. Could be. The Word tells us not to do that. It could be anger. Be angry and sin not. Yours might be foul language. You know the word tells us not to do that. Let no corrupt communication proceed from out of our mouth. Uh-oh, now you're meddling, preacher. Okay, I'm good with that. Because that's what the word says. What's your Red Sea? Let's move on. I got to finish this message. Look, if Moses had not been the strong leader that he was, those people would have ran right back to Egypt. They'd have went back in Egypt and said, hey, no need to worry about us. We're here. We're not going anywhere. We're comfortable here. How many of you know God did not call you to a life of comfort? Say amen. Some of you have been sold a bad bill of goods that God is all concerned about your happiness. Let me tell you something. Nowhere in the Word will you find where God is concerned about your happiness. And I'm just going to be very open and very bold, and you may not like what I'm fixing to say. God doesn't care about your happiness. God cares about your holiness. That's what He cares about. So stop living your life. Well, whatever makes you happy. That's exactly what the devil wants you to believe. We say, whatever makes you holy is what pleases God. That's a commandment in the Word. Be ye holy, for I am holy, says the Lord. All right? We tend to want to stay in the comfortable. We like to be comfortable, don't we? We do. Look, I'm at the age now where I like regimen. I wake up early, I eat me a little something, I go work, I get me a shower. Depending on if I'm working here in the office or at the house. I'll work outside for about 6 hours. I usually start around 6 o'clock in the morning. I'll work outside clearing some property or building on the house, whatever we're doing at that time. And then I'll stop around noon. I go get myself a shower. I eat a little something. I take a senior nap. How many of y'all take senior naps? Say amen. How many of you are still cursed and you can't do that yet? Say amen. You will. I was one of them that fought with my mom when she said, it's nap time. Now I would give everything I own to have my mom say, it's nap time. Yes, Mommy. Thank you. We used to take naps when we didn't need them. Now we need them. I like being comfortable. I like to know what I'm going to eat for supper when I wake up. I like that. That's just the way I am. I like to know where I have to go today. I like to know what I've got to do today. And I learned something years ago, and if you hadn't learned this yet, please listen to me very carefully, especially you young people. The thing that you dread doing the most, do it first. That way you're not dreading it all day long. That's a miserable day when you're dreading what you have to do at the end of the day. Just wake up and do it and be done with it. Then go, yes. It's kind of like living for Jesus. You live for Him now because the good is to come. But if you live for yourself now, the good may never come later. It might only get worse for you. I don't know. I don't know your personal condition, so you have to figure that out. Look, some people give up right on the verge of a miracle. You ever notice that? Have you ever give up just before something big possibly could have happened? Everybody. When we travel the country, every now and then Susan and I will travel the country. We'll be gone for like 5 weeks. We drag the camper and we'll go camp, go to different national parks and things that they don't have very often, but we love doing that. Every now and then we're like, oh man, are we ever going to get there? Maybe we took a wrong turn. Maybe we ought to just go back and find us a campground, chill out, regroup, blah, 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 blah. And all of a sudden you cross over this big old mountain and there it is. It's like, oh my gosh. We stayed in Durango, Colorado back in 2017. And we had heard about Silverton and Ouray. And I'm like, man, I don't know anything about that, so let's go over to Silverton and check it out and see what it is. And the road between Durango and Silverton's not real long, but it's long enough to where you begin thinking, maybe I got lost. And so I'm thinking, oh man, did we take a wrong, were we supposed to take, because I didn't use GPS in 2017, it was all paper maps. And I'm getting Susan to go through it. Did we take a wrong turn? No, it says it's right up here. I think we took a wrong turn somewhere. And all of a sudden, we came over the mountain, and there's Silverton down in the bottom. And it's like, oh, look at this. How beautiful. It's a little town, almost like a little western town down there in the bottom. Beautiful. And I'm like, man, I'm glad I didn't turn around and go back to Durango. I'm glad we kept on pressing forward. Look, too many times in our life, we stop just short of seeing a miracle. We stop just short because of discouragement or frustration. Exodus chapter 14, and we're really going to finish this thing in 5 minutes. Beginning in verse 13. But Moses told the people, remember, they're freaking out. Moses told the people, don't be afraid. Just stand still and watch the Lord rescue you today. He told them, stop fussing, stop doing anything. Just stand there and watch what's fixing to happen. The Egyptians you see today will never be seen again. The Lord himself will fight for you. Just stay calm. And the Lord said to Moses, why are you crying out to me? In other words, stop praying and get busy. That's a different sermon, but yeah. Tell the people to get moving. Pick up your staff and raise your hand over the sea. Divide the water so the Israelites can walk through the middle of the sea on dry ground. Woo! I want to point out one quick thing. I was reading an article the other day, and they were showing this sandbar across the Red Sea. And they said there are certain times of the year that the water recedes so much that a sandbar goes all the way across the Red Sea and people can walk across it. And they were showing some pictures and this and that. And they're saying this is the path that the Israelites took. It's the shallow path. And, no problem at all. There's only one problem with that. That's not scriptural. Because you keep on reading here, the Bible says God caused a wall of water on the right and a wall of water on the left. That wasn't a dry sandbar. He parted the sea. I believe they're walking through there and here's fish walking right here. And they're going, what in the world? They walked through on dry ground. Be scripturally accurate when you're reading scientific stuff. Be scripturally accurate. God divided the sea and they walked across. But imagine if they had did what they wanted to do and run back to Egypt. They would have never seen God do what God did. Not only that, God had caused Pharaoh to chase him, all of his army. They chased him down into the bottom of the Red Sea, and as soon as the last Hebrew stepped out of the water, or where the water would be, God closed it over him and killed every person in the Egyptian army. Soldiers, horses, everything died. Everything died. Because God said, it's time for me to show the Egyptians who I am, and it's time for me to show the Hebrews who I am. And he got their attention. Look, don't ever give up. I love the old Don Moen song from the 90s. God will make a way where there seems to be no way. He works in ways we cannot see. He will make a way for me. The thought hit me the other day. Jesus said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. Have you ever thought about this? The way made a way. The way made a way. Look, we need to think about that in our life. We need to go to the way in prayer and say, Father, I cannot see a way through this Red Sea right now, but you can. So I'm praying that you would make a way for me right here, right now. Look, we introduced that new song, If I Got Jesus, I Got Everything I've Ever Needed. I hope you will put that on repeat play on your Spotify or on your Pandora or whatever it is you listen to, because that should be our theme song in life. If we got Jesus, we got everything we need. Everything we need. You don't need anything more. Trust me, riches will fade, cars will fade, houses will fade, beauty will fade, clothes will grow old. Everything fades away, but Jesus never, ever changes. Ever. He's all you need all the time. Look, maybe you're right on the verge of giving up before you see a miracle in your life. Maybe you've already given up before you see God do something. It's time to get back to where the Lord wants us to be. Time to follow Him. Time to trust Him. Time to exercise faith in Him. And stop letting your Red Sea win. Stop letting it win.